The fundamental question that we wanted to address in the book was this. God has made us material beings and placed us in a material world.
Hmm.
What are we to do with that? What does that world tell us about who God is? And what does that world tell us about who we're supposed to be?
So that's the fundamental question you're addressing in the book. I'm wondering, was there an idea or a light bulb moment that sort of touched off the book, or perhaps a burning question that you saw Christians asking and knew we needed to try to answer?
Yeah, I mean, I said we were going to set art aside, but I mean, art was the driving force. We run with the Anselm Society. We run a program that helps our artists connect their craft and their faith better. And we found that most of the artists who are Christians that we were encountering really struggled with this. They had grown up with a theology that was lacking to explain why what they did mattered. And the more that we worked on it with them and the more that we thought about it, we discovered, not really to our surprise, I suppose, that it was really a bigger problem. It wasn't an artist problem. It was a church-wide problem where we tend to, at least in the churches I've been a part of in my life, we tend to struggle with questions of vocation. We either, in a day-to-day, minute-to-minute sense, live like this world, the material created thing, is all that matters, which is how most of our neighbors live, right? The material world, there's no heaven, there's no afterlife. The material world is all that matters. Or we live like the next world is all that matters. And we don't know what to do. Okay, I've got this whole faith thing. I've got this whole Jesus thing. I've got this whole I want to go to heaven someday thing. What does that have to do with how I live now? Or my personal favorite, we know we're supposed to do something of both of those. We know that the here and now matters somehow, and we know that the next world matters somehow. But since we don't know how to put the two together, we kind of alternate. There are little chapters of our day or chapters of our lives where we do things called going to church or called reading our Bibles or called witnessing. And then there's other chapters of our day where if you followed us around with the camera, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the Christian and their next door neighbor. And in any of those options, if we don't know how to put together heaven and earth, eternity and time, we will constantly be separating things that are not meant to be separated. And worse, we will be walking away from one of the primary vocations of the human being, which is precisely to put those two things together, those things that are hard to see in a fallen world, but to point to material things or create with material things and say, this has spiritual significance. This has eternal significance. God has made a world that is designed to point us to him. And if we aren't saying that as humans, we are failing in our duty as the Imago Dei, and the rocks themselves will be forced to cry out because we won't do it for them.
Tell us the story of Leaf by Niggle. This is a short story by Tolkien. And you guys kind of use it in the book, you use it in your introduction to frame a lot of this discussion, because at the heart of the story is the tension you're describing here between the quote unquote creative enterprise, like the artistic thing, and then the ordinary day-to-day tasks of life, and that we view as distractions often. And I love this story. I'll just say this. I love this story so much because it seems autobiographical for Tolkien in so many ways, because we know he was obsessively bound to this world that sprang into his imagination almost unbidden, and he spent so much of his life crafting it. And I know at times he had to have seen the mundane, ordinary segments of life as unrelated to his true calling, which was to bring Middle Earth into fruition. Tell us that story and the significance, because I think you've got the message exactly right.
Well, you can be a single person, a married person with kids. You can be at any stage in life, and the following situation will resonate with you. There's something you're working on that you care about very much, and you're trying to focus on it, and things keep interrupting you. Those things might be texts and phone calls. They might be the need to feed yourself. They might be laundry. They might be small children. They might be the fact that you have a day job, which has nothing to do with that thing that you're working on that you really want to do.
Right.
we've all been there. We're all there. I mean, I'm there a dozen times a day. Um, and Leaf by Niggle is a parable that is Tolkien's answer to the question, what am I supposed to do with that? What is the relationship between the things I view as distractions and the things that I view as important? And the story goes, this man Niggle is trying to do a painting of a tree, and it's going to be his masterwork. And he's got a neighbor that keeps coming over and saying, my wife is sick, my roof is leaking, all the things. But in terms of number of pages, most of the story actually then happens in the afterlife, and happens as both as the vague heavenly beings in the story are wrestling with what we do with Niggle's relative worth and the acts of grace above and beyond that worth. But it also deals with what Niggle's process of learning how that all fit together. And you can, if you're not paying attention, you can walk away from the story with the idea that, well, the distractions were what mattered all along. And I think frankly, a lot of Protestants live like this. They look at things that appear unnecessary, appear extra, like a rose or that story that someone's trying to write. Oh, that's not as important as these sort of very earthy raising the kids type things. But yeah, I think what Tolkien's trying to do with the story and what we're trying to illuminate in more detail in the book is not that it was the ordinary things that mattered all along. It was that there are no ordinary things.